Under a sky streaked with the eerie glow of an otherworldly disturbance, the USS Iowa, a bastion of American naval power, cut through the Atlantic Ocean's choppy waves. This was not the Cold War era of deterrence and shadow games, but a new confrontation that defied all logic and military doctrine. A dark and pulsating portal had torn open the fabric of reality itself, situated ominously on the high seas, a gateway to a realm of chaos and destruction. The crew aboard the Iowa, trained for warfare against the world's most formidable navies, found themselves facing an entirely different kind of enemy. Reports of ships vanishing without a trace, communications filled with screams and static, and waters roiling with nightmare creatures had been pouring in, turning the naval strategy on its head. Admiral Thaddeus Sterling, a veteran of countless naval engagements, stood on the bridge, peering into the abyssal horizon with a mix of resolve and incredulity. The Iowa had been redirected from its patrol route for a mission that sounded more like a dispatch from the Dark Ages than a modern military operation. Yet, the evidence was undeniable. The world was on the brink of an invasion, not by a foreign nation, but by forces that belonged to myth and legend. The battleship, a marvel of engineering and firepower, had been hastily equipped with experimental weapons designed to engage these supernatural adversaries. Scientists and occult experts worked alongside sailors and Marines, blending ancient rites with cutting-edge technology in a bid to forge weapons capable of closing the portal. As the Iowa approached the coordinates of the disturbance, the sea began to churn violently, and the air filled with a palpable sense of dread. The crew, hardened by the discipline of naval life, felt an unfamiliar fear creeping into their hearts. Sea demons, massive creatures with scales that deflected cannon fire and eyes that glowed with malevolence, began to emerge from the depths, their roars challenging the thunder of the ship's guns. "Battle stations!" Admiral Sterling's voice boomed over the intercom, a call to arms that rallied the crew to their posts. Every man and woman aboard knew that this battle would be unlike any they had faced before. This was not just a fight for their lives, but for the survival of the human world as they knew it. As the first salvo of the Iowa's newly outfitted weapons roared towards the encroaching demons, a mix of high-explosive rounds and arcane energy, the battle for the future of humanity began. The USS Iowa, a symbol of human ingenuity and martial prowess, faced the abyss, not just as a warship, but as a vessel on the front lines of a war between worlds. The mission was clear: to close the portal and quell the infernal invasion, ensuring that the darkness would not engulf the earth. The fight for the Atlantic had taken on a new, unimaginable dimension. Amidst the tumultuous waves of the Pacific, the USS Iowa, a behemoth of steel and firepower, faced an onslaught unlike any in its storied history. The ocean around it boiled with malice as demonic entities surged from the depths, their grotesque forms slicing through the water towards the ship. Above, the sky darkened with the shadows of winged demons diving toward the deck in a frenzied assault. Admiral James T. Kirkland, his eyes steely with determination, surveyed the chaos from the bridge. "All hands, battle stations. Air defense crews, target those flying abominations. Main guns, focus on the sea demons. We hold the line here." The air crackled with orders as sailors rushed to their posts. The ship's storied guns, 16-inch rifles capable of hurling a projectile 20 miles with pinpoint accuracy, swiveling to meet the approaching threat. The Iowa's anti-aircraft batteries, too, came alive, the sky above them igniting with the bloom of flak shells as they sought to bring down the aerial attackers. The sea demons, massive behemoths of scale and fang, bore down on the Iowa, their bodies seemingly impervious to the roiling sea around them. Yet as they came within range, the Iowa's main guns roared to life, hurling volley after volley of high-explosive shells into the advancing horde. Explosions tore through the water, sending geyser-like plumes into the air as demonic carcasses were blasted apart by the sheer force of the ordnance. Above, the situation grew increasingly dire as the winged demons evaded the flak bursts with unnerving agility, their screeches filling the air as they descended upon the ship. Machine gun crews, stationed along the deck, opened fire, their bullets whizzing through the air. To the astonishment of the sailors, the regular ammunition proved lethal against the creatures. their bodies rupturing in mid-flight, raining down ichor and debris onto the deck. In a display of desperation and courage, Marine sharpshooters took up positions, picking off the demons with precise shots, their training allowing them to adapt to this unimaginable scenario. Each fallen demon, a testament to human resilience in the face of the uncanny and supernatural. Admiral Kirkland, watching the scene unfold, felt a surge of pride amidst the horror. "Keep firing, damn it! This ship has stood against the might of empires. She will not falter against the spawn of hell." As the battle raged, the Iowa continued its relentless advance, her guns never ceasing their thunderous barrage. The sea around her became a maelstrom of fire and blood, the air a cacophony of explosions and demonic wails. As if summoned by the collective anticipation of the Iowa's crew, the sea ahead began to churn. A dense, unnatural fog rolled over the surface of the water, swallowing the twilight and casting the ocean into premature darkness. The temperature dropped, a chill wind whispering of ancient malice and hatred as shadows moved within the fog, formless yet heavy with threat. Then, emerging from the heart of this malevolent mist, the silhouette of a ship appeared. It was the Bismarck, or rather its demonic incarnation, its hull twisted by dark powers, its cannons glowing with a baleful light. The sight of it, a specter from the nightmares of naval history reborn into a vessel of pure evil, sent a shiver through the crew. The aerial retreat had been but the calm before the storm, and now the true tempest was upon them. This was the USS Iowa as she had never been seen before. Not just a warship, but a bastion against darkness, her crew united in a singular, unthinkable purpose. Here, amidst the fury of the Atlantic, they stood as the thin line between their world and the abyss, their resolve unbroken, their guns blazing a path towards hope. In the vast, churning waters of the Atlantic, under a sky darkened by unnatural clouds and streaked with ominous red lightning, the USS Iowa and the demonic Bismarck faced each other like titans of old. The air was thick with anticipation and the smell of salt and sulfur, a testament to the clash of worlds about to unfold. On the bridge of the Iowa, Admiral Thaddeus Sterling stood resolute, his eyes fixed on the monstrous silhouette of the Bismarck. The air around his buzzed with tense energy as his crew worked feverishly, their training and instincts guiding them in this most surreal of battles. "Adjust heading to 24 degrees starboard, full speed ahead. Let's give them a moving target," Admiral Sterling ordered, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of steel. The Iowa responded with the grace of a much smaller vessel, its engines roaring to life as it cut through the waves, angling for a more advantageous position. Across the water, the Bismarck, its hull twisted and corrupted into something out of a nightmare, began its onslaught. From its darkened decks, eldritch flames shot towards the Iowa, arcing through the sky with a malevolent glow. The sea around the impact zones boiled and hissed, as if the very water were loath to touch the unholy fire. "Hard to port!" Sterling commanded as the Iowa veered sharply, the flames missing their mark by mere meters, scorching the ocean instead. The crew cheered, but their admiral remained focused, knowing that each dodge was only a temporary reprieve. The Bismarck, undeterred, unleashed another volley, this time a barrage of spectral cannonballs that phased in and out of reality as they sped towards Iowa. "Brace for impact!" Sterling shouted, knowing this was no evading this salvo. The cannonballs struck the Iowa, causing the ship to shudder violently under the impacts. But the damage was less than expected. The Iowa's hull, reinforced for such a possibility, held strong against the supernatural assault. Seeing their opening, the gunnery team on the Iowa sprang into action. "Target their main guns, fire at will," Sterling ordered. The Iowa's own cannons roared to life, the ship's conventional weaponry tracing bright lines across the darkened sky as they hurtled towards the Bismarck. The first hells struck the demonic battleship, exploding upon impact with a satisfying clarity that was echoed back across the water. For a moment, it seemed as if the tide of battle might turn on the strength of human ingenuity and courage alone. But the Bismarck was not so easily defeated. With a sound like the world tearing apart, it summoned a tidal wave, a massive wall of water infused with dark energy, sending it crashing towards the Iowa with the force of 1,000 storms. "Full power to the engines! Aim for the wave's crest!" Sterling yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. The Iowa charged forward, racing up the face of the oncoming wave, its hull groaning under the strain. As the ship crested the wave for a brief, weightless moment, it seemed as if the Iowa might be swallowed by the sea. But then gravity reasserted itself, and the battleship came crashing down on the other side, still intact, still fighting. In the aftermath, as water sluiced off the decks and the crew caught their breath, Admiral Sterling allowed himself a small smile. They had survived the Bismarck's latest assault, but the battle was far from over. The Iowa would need to use every trick at its disposal, every ounce of its speed and agility, to defeat this demonic adversary. And so the duel continued, a dance of death and defiance on the high seas, as the USS Iowa and the demonic Bismarck traded blow for blow, each determined to emerge victorious in this titanic clash of worlds. As the USS Iowa and the demonic Bismarck positioned themselves for a clash of titans, the Bismarck unleashed its first gambit. A supernatural fog, dense and all-consuming, rolled across the ocean's surface. It was an ethereal veil meant to blind Iowa and cloak Bismarck's movements, a strategic advantage in the looming battle. However, despite the visual impairment, the Iowa's radar continued to track the ghostly outline of their adversary, a beacon of technology amidst the arcane. Admiral Sterling, his eyes fixed on the radar, knew the stakes. The Iowa was at a disadvantage, unable to use its formidable guns without a visual target. Then, as if to taunt them, a salvo of hellfire rounds from the Bismarck crashed into the ocean near Iowa, sending plumes of water skyward. The heat was so intense, it felt like the sea might ignite. The demonic ship's next volley would surely find its mark. The tension aboard the Iowa was a palpable thing, thick as the fog that enveloped them. But just as despair threatened to take hold, fate intervened. From the direction of a nearby Allied carrier, the roar of jet engines pierced the foggy silence. Fighter jets, sleek and swift, appeared as shadows against the gray, their arrival unexpected but desperately welcomed. The Bismarck, sensing the new threat, activated its anti-aircraft guns in response, but these were relics of a past era, their mechanisms twisted by demonic influence yet lacking the precision required to combat modern aircraft. The guns fired wildly, tracers arching through the fog in a futile display of defiance. The outdated weapons were no match for the agility of the jets, which danced through the volleys with ease. Capitalizing on this, the jets dove, unleashing a barrage of missiles towards the Bismarck. Explosions illuminated the fog, a testament to the precision of modern warfare against the backdrop of supernatural might. Below, the crew of the Iowa cheered, their spirits lifted by this display of air superiority. With the Bismarck distracted and its anti-air efforts proving ineffective, Admiral Sterling seized the moment. "Fire at the radar lock," he commanded. The Iowa's guns roared to life, sending a volley of hells, arcing through the fog towards the Bismarck, guided by the combined efforts of their technological prowess and the jet's aerial assault. The fog began to lift, weakened by the Bismarck's faltering power, revealing the battered visage of the demonic ship. It was scarred from the assault, smoke billowing from its decks, a beast wounded by the unexpected alliance of sea and air. The mystical fog maneuver had been undone, thwarted by the Iowa's persistence and the swift intervention of the fighter jets. Together, they had demonstrated the might of combined arms, a unity of purpose against the darkness. Admiral Sterling watched as the skies cleared, a sense of resolve firm within him. No matter the odds, they would stand ready together against whatever threats may emerge from the depths or beyond. As the Allied naval task force converged on the demonic Bismarck, the air was thick with anticipation, the sea bristling with the might of a united front against darkness. The USS Iowa, at the vanguard, led the assault, her guns roaring in defiance of the hellish foe before them. The Allied destroyers, cruisers, and the looming presence of another carrier added their firepower to the symphony of destruction aimed at the Bismarck. But the Bismarck, cornered and facing the overwhelming might of the Allied forces, was not yet defeated. With a defiant roar that seemed to shake the very air, the ship summoned its remaining dark powers, focusing them into a desperate final gambit. The sea around the Bismarck began to churn violently, whipped into a frenzy by forces both natural and supernatural. Dark clouds, heavy with malevolence, swirled into existence, casting a shadow over the battlefield. Lightning, black as night and charged with demonic energy, forked through the sky, striking the water and Allied ships alike with terrifying precision. The tempest grew rapidly, centered on the Bismarck, becoming a maelstrom of unparalleled fury. It was more than just a storm. It was a manifestation of the Bismarck's will, a last stand that sought to drag its enemies down into the abyss. The wind howled with the voices of the damned, a cacophony that sought to break the spirit of the Allied crews, to turn their resolve into despair. Amidst this chaos, the Allies faced a challenge unlike any before. Navigating the maelstrom was a test of skill and courage, as the physical tempest mirrored the spiritual turmoil it aimed to inflict upon them. The USS Iowa, steadfast and unyielding, led the charge, his admiral's voice a beacon of clarity in the storm. "Hold the line," he commanded, his words cutting through the din. "This is the Bismarck's final gambit, a show of fear, not strength. Together, we weather this storm. Together, we end this threat." The Allied ships tightened their formation, bracing against the tempest's assault. The carrier launched a series of fighters, their pilots daring to fly into the heart of the storm, their resolve a testament to the courage of all who fought against the darkness. These fighters, guided by the faint glow of the Bismarck amidst the blackened clouds, dove through gales and demonic lightning, their bombs aimed at the source of the tempest. Below, on the roiling sea, the Iowa and his allies continued their bombardment, their hells arcing through the storm, each salvo a declaration of defiance. The tempest raged, a last desperate scream of rage from the Bismarck, but the Allied fleet pressed on, undeterred. As the final bombs fell and the last shells struck their mark, the tempest began to wane, the dark clouds dissipating, the sea calming. The Bismarck, its hull battered and broken, its dark powers spent, stood silent in the water, a testament to the folly of challenging the combined might of those who stand for the light. In the aftermath, as calm returned to the sea and the sun broke through the remaining clouds, the Allied forces surveyed the scene. The Bismarck's last stand had been formidable, a tempest of both wind and spirit, but in the end, it was the unity and resolve of the Allies that prevailed. The demonic threat was quelled, the sea once again belonged to the living, and the world was a little safer, thanks to the courage of those who sailed into the heart of the storm. As the demonic Bismarck begins its final descent into the abyss, the once formidable battleship, now a smoldering wreck, seems to acknowledge its defeat with a gesture of defiance. In a last act of spite, its cannons, glowing with a sinister light, aim skyward and unleash a single massive hell. The projectile arcs through the air, a comet of dark energy, before crashing into the portal from which the ship had drawn its unholy power. The impact is catastrophic, sending shock waves across the sky and sea. Then, as suddenly as it had opened, the portal snaps shut, the rift sealing with an ominous silence that hangs heavy over the battlefield. The Allied forces, weary but vigilant, watch in a mix of relief and confusion. The closure of the portal, while a significant victory, raises more questions than it answers. The immediate threat may have been quelled, but the sense of unease persists, a lingering shadow over the hard-fought triumph. In the aftermath, as salvage operations commence amid the wreckage of the Bismarck, a critical discovery is made. Hidden within the ship's bowels, encased in a chamber that withstood the battle's fury, lies a trove of demonic artifacts and ancient texts. Cryptic messages and symbols among these relics point to a harrowing truth. Bismarck was merely a pawn in a much larger, more sinister game. The intelligence gathered reveals the existence of a powerful demon lord, a mastermind whose dark ambitions extend far beyond the opening of a single portal. This entity, known only by a name that chills the blood of those who dare speak it, has been orchestrating events from the shadows, manipulating both demons and humans alike. in a complex plot aimed at a catastrophic endgame. With this revelation, the mission becomes clear. The Allied forces, led by the crew of the USS Iowa, must delve deeper into the demonic hierarchy, unraveling the plans of this elusive demon lord. The journey will take them to the Earth's darkest corners and beyond, into realms while the lines between reality and nightmare blur. As preparations for this new mission begin, the mood among the Allies is one of determination tinged with apprehension. The portal's closure, while a strategic victory, serves as a grim reminder of the stakes. The battle against Bismarck was but the opening salvo in a war that spans the divide between worlds, a war that must be won at all costs. Standing at the helm, the Admiral of Iowa gazes into the horizon while the sea meets the sky in a line unmarred by portals or demonic ships. His thoughts are with those who have fallen, but his resolve is unbroken. With the support of his crew and the alliance they have forged, he steels himself for the challenges ahead. The journey into the unknown begins now, with the world's fate hanging in the balance.